Hey guys,
Oh, how's it going?
this is good. All right, guys, I went ahead and dropped in the warm up in our cohort channel. If you want to check that out and take this time to start working through that. For those of you just joining, I went ahead and posted warm up instructions inside of the 2023 cohort channel. So if you just want to go find those and run through that before we get started today, I think it's a good way to help flex your brain in a little bit less guided way. For anybody that just joined, I went ahead and put instructions inside of the 2023 cohort channel. Just warm up instructions. So if you want to go ahead and start working on that for the next, let's say 5:45, we will come back and work through it. And if you guys have any questions when you're working on this, like feel free to like reply to that message or just chat in here or verbally unmute and chat about it.
Leaving.
Hey Jorge, we're just doing a warm up right now. Instructions are in the 2023 cohort channel.
All right, all right.
Chat. Submit email. Okay.
All right, guys, 5:40. Throw a thumbs up if you need more time. All right, guys, 5:45. I'm gonna start walking through this and how I would do it. And we can kind of talk about it at the end and see, if yours looks a little bit different than mine, or if you couldn't quite get there, we can talk about any issues you ran into. So go ahead and share my screen. So step one is to create a new React app. And so I am in the curriculum repository that all of our stuff is held. I'm going to head into module 4. I'm going to go into day, what is this, 3? Yeah. And then I'm going to run npx create React app, and I'm going to call this one I'll just call this one warm up because I'm going to make another app. So for now, this one is called warm up. Sweet. And so you see it created the warm up repository, the warm up folder. I'm going to go ahead and just create another one while we're out here. And then we're going to call this one weather. And then while that one's going, we can go ahead and look in here. So we got warm up and weather here. I don't know if this one's done yet. There we go. So ls, and you can see I've made both of those. I'm going to open up warm up. I've got the source, and I've got a app.js. Let me hide these meeting controls. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and cd into the warm up. Now that I'm on the root of this folder, I can run npm run start to spin that up in the browser. I'm gonna just take this and kill that tag. Put it into here. Okay, so there is my app is now up and running. Sweet. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create, or effectively just creating a sign-in form. This is just a convention that we'll go ahead and start doing, but I'm gonna make a new folder and just call it components. And I'm gonna put all of my various components that are gonna live in my app inside of here, make a new file and components, and I'm gonna call this sign in form.jsx. Define this component, sign in form go ahead and return two things, return an input, username, oops. What was my prompt? Email and password. So type is email, placeholder is email for now. I'll just save this, what I just want. Oh. Okay, so I've got a sign-in form. I'm gonna come in here and delete out all of this stuff. I'm gonna call my sign-in form. And everything I'm gonna do will be inside of here for this warm-up. You don't technically need to put this in its own component. It's just kind of, good practice to feel like you're not gonna work in app.js most of the time. Okay, so inside of here, I said we wanted hook them both up to state. And so I'm gonna make, for how I like to do it, I'm just gonna make one state. And so you could do it like this, where you have constate email, constate password, and then this is your email and password, right? the other way you could do it is you could just say form data, set form data. Oh, I could just make this a form. And then use state is going to be this, is email, password. So instead of, I need to import. So instead of having two, I'm just going to use the same form. So this one state value is holding an object that encompasses my entire form. And then the value of this will be equal to form data dot email, and the value of this one will be equal to form data dot password. And then we'll do a regular label for email, an ID, name equals email. Copy this for our password. Do a password. Okay, and so now I've got these two forms, or there's two inputs inside of this form. I need a button so I can submit the form. Sorry, I'm getting help. I always forget to turn it off. Okay, so now I've got this button. This type is submit. Got these things, and then what do I need on these inputs to update their values?
Need a on change.
Yeah, so I need an on change property attribute. And then what needs to go inside of here?
We'll need a function, right? Or the
Yep. So I've got that, and then do you guys remember what gets passed as the parameter from this on change function?
is it the event?
Right. Yeah. So this is the whole change event, which if I hover that, it's telling me it's a React.change event. It doesn't want me to hover it, but React change event from a input element. And so if I'm just inside of here, I could just console.log the event. A little easier to read now. So I could come in here, open this up, go to my console. Oh, calm down. Leave me alone. Okay, I'm just gonna let that be huge and ugly for a second. So yeah, it's spitting out these events. The event has this target property, and that target is effectively the entire HTML element of this input, and that has this value property, which is currently nothing. But we need to say on change. We can do something with this e.target.value. That's the value that comes out of the change event. If I set this to set form data, if I call this every time email changes, what would happen? Like I type a character, it calls this function, and it says set form data to this value. So it's kind of funky because I set it up weird and not just one-to-one. So I'm not using one use state for email. And so I'm setting the entire object to this value, which in this case is just a string. And so I'm like overriding this whole object to just a string. And so form data becomes just whatever string I type in here. And then the value of this becomes like dot email on a string. And so it breaks. And so then I need to actually set the form data to an object, and then set the field that I'm setting, which is email, And so now I'm setting the email on this object to this form data. But if I did this, then if I set anything in the password, then it would overwrite the password. And so I need to spread whatever data exists on the form data already into this new set state. So if I say spread this form data, so this is everything that already exists on form data, leave it there. And so this is spreading on the email and the password. And then I'm overwriting the email key to this new value. And so this is like a pretty common way to handle forms, especially if you have like a ton of form items, right? If you have 20 fields in your form, then now I just can use this one big object and I'm just writing to and updating this big object. And I can just reuse the set form data method for every single field. And so then the value will be the key on this object inside of state. And then whenever I'm changing it, then I will set it to this new value on the key, spread the and update the form data with this whole new object that I'm writing that just has this value updated. So let's make sure that that works. I'm gonna zoom this out so my thing will stop freaking out on me. So now you see I'm typing and it stays, and then this one I'm typing and nothing happens because I haven't wired up the on change for this one. And so for this one, I can just take this, paste it in here, save it. And so now I can reuse this whole same line, but instead of email, I just need to update password. And so now I'm in here, start typing. You see it's dots because I told that it was a password type input. And so automatically does that. And so the email actually, let me go ahead and make this inside of a, if I wanted to style something, what do I need to put here so I can do some inline styles?
Some brackets.
Curly brackets.
Yes.
Now what?
Double?
Yeah, double curly brackets. Yeah, so the first one is escaping the JSX, and the second one is defining the object that we're writing. So inside the style, I just want to say display is flex, and I want to say flex direction, oops, is column, save that, come over here. Now I've got this big ugly thing. Normally wouldn't just style the form itself, but we're just winging it for the warm up. So, and then we can go ahead and just give this like margin. Let's say like 0 top and bottom, and we'll say 30 pixels left and right. And so now just got a little space on the sides. And then we'll say flex align. Nope. Align items. There we go. Flex start. So now it's all kind of over here. And then these inputs, I want to give them a style to make them full width. And so I get to say style, this width, 100%. I'm going to copy this, put it on this guy too. And so now I've just got the emails left aligned, passwords left aligned, but these still span the full width. And then I'm just going to give each of these labels a style of margin top. Let me just say 20. Okay, so now I've got somewhat of a form here. Give this button some styles too. Margin top 20. Oops. Okay, so now I've got something that looks somewhat decent. And so now I want to, whenever this button is clicked inside of this form, I want to console.log these two values. And so I need a on submit call here, give it the curly braces so that I can pass it a function. And then I'm going to create a function just called handle submit. I'm going to write that function here, handle submit. And then inside of here, I'm just going to say console.log form data. Nice. Okay, so now I say, oh, and so I said it was type of email, and so it's this is my work email. Leave me alone. Man, it is really trying too hard to help me. You'll see that my everything went away. That is because whenever you call submit, it refreshes the entire page because it does a full submit of the page. Does anyone remember the trick to make that not happen?
What was the question?
Whenever I submit the form, it refreshes the whole page. And how can I stop that?
Oh, it's similar to ignore. Hang on.
So here's a hint. This function, like the input on change, passes an event, a submit event. And so I can take that here. And so this is a form event handler. And so inside of here, I have this event, and that is what's called the default functionality when you submit a form, is to refresh the page. And so if I wanted to prevent that default, then I could say prevent default. That's a function. Sweet. So now if I come in here and say this again, and then put in some password and sign in, then now I'm getting this object logged to the console with this email and this password. Sweet. And so like at this point, if I was, continuing to build this, then this is where I would take this object that I created, this email and password, and I would send that to some authentication server that I have somewhere else, and then that would validate that I entered the correct email and password. But for now, we can just leave it there. Sweet. Did anybody do it any different, or does anything here not make sense, or anybody have any just general type questions? Did you guys do it like this, or did you do it emails one state and passwords one state?
I did it that way, with each one having its own state. And yeah, I'm impressed with you throwing some styles in there. So being able to control the, HTML, yeah, having all three things just in unison, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I didn't
Sweet.
make it very far, to be honest.
Same.
What do you feel like was your hang up?
I always forget to do npm run start on my app. So I've only done that like 3 times now, so I just forgot to do that. So I didn't make it too far as like trying to get everything loaded. I got everything. I started working through stuff. Started building out the form and stuff like that, but I think, yeah, within 15 minutes, it's like I didn't get very far. So
Yeah, that's fair. 15 minutes is not a lot of time. We got other things.
I might
to
come
do.
back and go through it and redo it for kicks, because
Yeah.
it's kind of got me curious. I'm like Alex. I'm like, well, but it's good homework to come back and try and fix.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be studying this code because for me it's the getting the info and setting it is a little difficult, but repetition is what fixes that, I suppose. We just got to get used to this weird format. But yeah, I got the form started. I was doing it the same way where it was both email and password together, and then I was like, okay, I got this. Now I need to figure out how to update it. So I was mid research when we were done.
Yeah, sweet. Cool. So Yeah, I think all of those are reasonable, and 15 minutes is not a lot of time, especially if we've only seen this like once and your homework. I just kind of wanted to gauge where everyone was at and kind of see how everything was clicking. And also, I think just trying to struggle through it before you just kind of follow along with like how it's seen and how you watch someone else do it. It kind of helps really build it yourself. But there is also like, it is definitely reasonable to just like, hey, after this class is over, I don't remember how to build a form. I don't remember, how to update state and things like that, and just come back to a code like this and just copy it and paste it in, right? I definitely did that for a long time. And so it's okay to like look back at things you have or things that you've learned and just like, how did I do it before? Because like, you're not going to remember everything forever, right? Sweet. Okay, so let's move on. There's definitely a hard warm up, but I just wanted to kind of throw you in the deep end and see how far we got. Okay, so the next step is we've got this other app. Same thing. I'm going to go ahead and kill my web server here. Oops, go away. So I'm going to cd out of warm up and ls and cd into my weather app. And I'm doing ls again. You'll see that I'm on the root level because I can see my package and my package lock and my source folder, things like that, my node modules. So I can run npm run start, spin up my server again. It's going to open Chrome, even though we hate Chrome. Refresh it here. Okay. Sweet. So I've got this app, a different app now. I can close this sign in form and this app, and we can start this one. So this is going to be similar. We're going to be building on the same thing. And what's kind of scary, you guys, is that you actually know most of what you need to know about React. Everything else is just like libraries that are around React, but like this is the basis of React. Like if you're setting state, if you're using effect, like that is really what React does. Everything else is just like people have written components and libraries and helper things that exist. And so it's kind of just, you need to just be familiar grabbing onto stuff and using it, or different APIs and things. So that's what we're gonna look at today is like, we're just gonna keep doing the same things where we like build out forms, build out UIs, but like use them in different ways. And so we just made a sign-in form. That's a very common use case. But the other thing is like, if I want to basically use this weather API that we used before. Before, whenever we called it, we just said, hey, here's the weather, give me this stuff. Now I want to make it dynamic. Whatever, I want the user to interact with the API and basically determine what data they want back. And so I want to be able to say like, show me the weather in Los Angeles for this amount of days. Or I want to say, show me the weather in Oklahoma City just today or whatever, right? And so you could hard code all of that if we were just doing this in JavaScript and HTML, or you could try to make it all functional with JavaScript, but React just makes it really easy to make an interaction like that because we have access to state. So let's go ahead and open up this weather app. Just like the warm-up, I ran create React app. I've got this JS stuff. I'm going to delete the header out of here. I'm going to make a new component and I'm going to call it weather and I'm going to go define it first. Okay. And so here I'm going to do a folder. I'm going to do another components folder just to make that familiar. Make a weather.jsx const weather equals a method, a function. I really can't decide how I want to call it, what I want to call it, weather. Okay, so we know based on this description that I want an input like the other side, so that I can basically say, I want to be able to say a zip code or a city name or anything like that and find the weather for that. And so I'm going to say input. I'm going to give it a placeholder of we'll say zip code for now. And I want to say label HTML4. We'll just say zip code. I'll give this a name of zip code. Call it zip code. And I don't actually need this to be in a form this time, so I'm just going to throw it inside of these. And okay, so this is step one, is I've made my input again, and I'm going to wire it up just like the other one. And just to, show you guys, I'm going to pull up warm up, pull up my sign-in form, and I could just copy this because I've already wrote this already. Where am I at? Weather. Shouldn't change name. Placeholder to zip code. Type, get rid of, make it type equals. Connect this number. Nice. And then make the zip code. You can say enter your zip code or something like that. And then I actually don't need this to be inside of a form object, so I can just say zip code, and we'll define what that is in a second. We can say set zip code, and then this will just be equal to e.target.value. Okay, so now I've got an input that needs zip code and a way to update zip code, and so I need to update my state here. Const zip code set zip code equals use state. The default we can just use my current zip code. And if you wanted to get real crazy and pull your current location and use that as a default, you could get to stuff like that. But for now, we'll just hard code it because that's not what we're focusing on today. Okay, so I now just have a input, and I can import this input here. Make this go away. And go to my browser, and I should have a label and a input. What's going on with Arc? I don't know why it's bigger than my screen here. Anyways, okay. So now I want to hit this API, right? And so if I want to do that once this page loads, then I put that into a use effect, like we learned about last class. And so inside of this use effect, I want to make a fetch to some URL that we'll figure out. And let's figure out what this URL is. So inside of Arc, the browser, I'm looking at weatherapi.com. And so if I came to this place, if you guys wanted to go there, weatherapi.com, that's all I typed in. And this is, I think it was the second thing that came up on Google, Weather API. Yeah, this one right here. You do need to make an account for it, but you guys can just use my thing and I'll just paste that in for you. And so then down here they have their APIs. They have these different ones here. And so if I want the forecast, I can click on forecast, and it kind of gives you a long explanation of every single thing that it has, but it's kind of too much for us to really look into. And so they actually have this really cool tool. Where to go? API Explorer, which you just paste in your API key, and I'll go ahead and get that. Mine is right here. If you guys wanted to follow along, I'll just paste this in here. Weather API key. Sweet, and then here, I paste in my API key. I say I want to HTTP JSON, blah, blah, blah. So it shows us that we've got this parameter called Q, which I just have to assume means query, and then a value. And so like this is basically taking in like some query string. And so in our case, we're going to use a zip code. And so we're going to put in the zip code into the value. So in my case, it's my local zip code. And then it also says, how many days do you want? So we'll just say 1 week. And then AQI, air quality data, like do you want it or do you want the alerts? And we'll just say no to both of those. And so then it shows us like, hey, this is your URL right here that comes out. And then it like makes the response and all this stuff. And we can get into that stuff in a second, but all we're looking for is just this URL. And so I can put this in here. What's going on? And it's pretty freaking long. Let's go ahead and just take this and say const URL equals this. We're going to make a fetch to that URL. Okay. So currently everything's hard coded, right? I've got my zip code right here is hard coded, and the days right here are 7, and that is hard coded. We can leave 7 hard coded for now, but let's just worry about, I want this to be not a hard coded value of 73160. I want it to be whatever the user types in. And so how can I update this string to have my value in the middle? Anybody feeling super bold?
Like a string concatenation, like you could just remove that from it and
Yeah,
then
so
later on build it.
You could absolutely do that, or you can say this. And so this is right and it works. So instead of saying 73160, you could say zip code right here. And so now this string is equal to this plus my zip code plus the remainder of that string, and that works. The kind of more modern-y way to do it is a template literal. And so instead of this, we have one long string, and then instead of the quotes, you use backticks. And you would wrap your zip code right there. And that, and $, to escape it. And so now we're just defining one string, and then where this $curlies is, that's escaping that string to write actual JavaScript. And so we're accessing this zip code variable from state inside of this. And so like we talked about, every time you update the state value, the whole component will re-render. And so since we could say set state, the zip code then updates, which then re-renders. And so it's going to run this line again, redefining what the URL is with the new value from zip code as it goes line by line to recreate this, right? And so then zip code would then, or the URL would be this new URL with our zip code in the middle. And so then we want to make a fetch to the URL every time this changes. Would be kind of too often, and it would also probably get us like every time you type a key, it reevaluates. And so we could say, okay, only fetch it at the beginning. But then it's like, now we're not updating to the URL as it changes. So we basically need a way to rerun the fetch. And so the easiest way to do that is to just have a button that says like type in my zip code and hit enter, and then find the data for that. And so instead of fetching this here, we're going to want to just make a function called get forecast. And we're going to call that from inside of our use effect. That way we can use it multiple times. You want your functions to kind of be small and reusable. And so all this function is going to do is just get the forecast. So we say fetch at this URL. And then we're going to make this an asynchronous function. And so we're going to await this fetch and get the response. and we're going to say const data equals response.json. I think this needs to be awaited too. And then we're going to say console.log data. Okay, and then so we're going to go ahead and put this here. Okay, so now when the page loads, and only the first time the page loads, because I've got the empty dependency array. So it's going to run this function, and this function is going to run this function that will fetch the data. Oh, I need to make sure that this is my actual key. I think it is. I don't know what it gave to me. Just copy this to be sure. And we can just do it like this, because normally you wouldn't have a key like hard coded like that. So in our case, we'll just put it up here and pretend like it came from somewhere else. So I'm going to pull this out. Put this guy in there and just pass on my key. So we can call this like weather API key to be specific. Cool. And so let's see if this breaks. So the page loads and you'll see I've got two logs here. Location, current, and forecast is what comes out. And so for our case, we went the forecast. It gave us 3 days of forecasts. How many days did I say? 7? Why'd it give me 3? I wonder if that is plan based. Maybe you have to have more. If I ask for less, will it give me less? If I say 2.
Should let you go that far. I believe I did 7 on the other assignment.
I don't know why it would be different now. Let's see. Get me out of here. I don't want this. I want to go back to regular stuff. Okay, docs. Forecast API. Says, depending on your price plan level up to next 14-day weather forecast and weather alert. The data is returned as a forecast object. I don't know.
It could be because we were on the free plan, like on the trial period. That might be what's going on. So I might just be lying to you. It may have expired or something.
Okay, so yeah, so we've got, it definitely is accepting it, because if I say 2, then it came back as 2 instead of 3. And so if I say 3 and refresh, now my array is 3 long. So if I say 7, it's just going to limit me at 3. So we can leave it at 7. And if you used an API key that was different, that had 7, then you would get 7. Okay. So you see we've got current, forecast, and location. Forecast day is an array. And so out of data, we can destructure the forecast. And now this should be just the object of forecast day. You could even go farther here and say like forecast day and get all the way down into it like that to just get the array out of it. But a lot of people really don't like whenever you start doing multiple layers of destructuring like in one line, because it kind of starts to look a little crazy. So I like to do one because this is clean enough, and then just say forecast day. And if there were multiple things on here, then you could say like const forecast day equals forecast. And so then you could like just destructure this afterwards if you really don't want to do the dot notation, if you need like 4 or 5 things off of here. But we don't really need that much. We just want this array of stuff here. Okay, so now I basically need a way to update the page with this data that I've gotten back from the server. And so I've got this array, this forecast day array, and I need to put that into my JSX somehow. Does anyone have like an idea of how I could do that? It's kind of similar to what we did last time. So my idea is to have a state value that is going to hold anything that comes off of this server. So we can say like forecast data, set forecast data equals use state, and set this to an empty array. And then we can take this forecast data and we can map it down here into JSX elements. And so I can say forecast data, which is an array. So I can use an array method like map and take this huge data item, which we know what we're looking at. Go ahead and look that out. I'm already logging it up there, so I don't necessarily need to do that. Right now, we can just say data dot string. What is it? JSON. Stringify. Yeah. Put that inside of a div. And then this is the string. And so if I want to use the actual JSON.stringify, not just a word that says JSON.stringify, I need to put it in curly so I can use actual JavaScript in here. And so what this means is that I'm going to take every big data object that comes through, and I'm going to just turn it into a huge string object of that data instead of an actual object. It's just going to be all string, one big huge string. And I'm just going to put that inside of a div. So it's going to be really ugly. We're going to see literally everything that comes out of it on the page. And then here we can say set forecast data to forecast day. And we'll go ahead and leave this constant so we can look at it. And we come to the thing, and yeah, so here we've got this big, huge, ugly thing. So we know that when our page loaded, we got all the data. Here's the array. So we've got the date. Each hour, we could display the temperature. Really just whatever we're looking for to make our UI look nice. But I think overall, let's see. So let's take this away. And so instead of data, I'm going to destructure from this object. I've got the date property. So I can say date. And then I've got the, let's just do day for now. So I'll just pull off the day property. And that day property is this whole object that has, this is cool. They give us an icon to represent, I guess, what my weather is like, and then some text. And then I don't really know what that is, but let's just display the icon and the text and the high for every day. So we'll say inside of here, why don't we just go ahead and make a new component? What time are we at? Ooh, we're getting close. We'll just try to squeeze it, and then we'll try to rewatch it. So let's make our day card.jsx. Const day card is this, and we're going to return some stuff inside of here, and this is going to take whatever we decide for default day card. And so instead of writing a whole bunch more code here, I'm just going to instead return this as a day card. and then pass in the date as a prop. I'm going to pass in the, let's see, what did I say? I said we've got an icon text. So let's say condition image URL is going to be day.icon. And we're going to say, oh, day.condition.icon. Condition. And then we're going to say that the condition is going to be the day.condition dot text. And then we want to show the high, which is where? Max temp
Yeah,
Fahrenheit.
max, yeah, F.
Okay, and then high, oops. Temp equals max temp F. Sheesh, we're getting over there. Let's format this. Okay. Day dot max temp. I know I said that some people don't like this, but I can't stand to look at all these. So condition is going to come off there, and max temp F is going to come off there. And so instead of day, we're going to have those. Condition, save. Okay, so then we're going to get these two properties off of the day and pass those into here. Okay, so now our day card is expecting date, condition, image URL, condition, and high temp. And so inside of here, we're going to destructure the date, the condition, what did I call it? Condition image URL. Here, I'll show this. Bang, 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 bang. Not that one. Okay, and then inside of here, we can just throw in a div, and it's going to take each of these values. And so we can just say there's a div that is going to say date. It's going to look similar to what we did last time for time constraint, but date, and then we're going to say here's the date. We're going to copy this. Whoa. And so instead of the date on this one, we're going to say, actually don't need to say condition because we're going to have the image. And so this one's actually going to be an image, and the source is going to be this condition image URL. We can get rid of all this junk. Alt is going to be the image to show the daily condition. What do you want? No. The daily condition. It doesn't like that I called it an image because it already knows that it's an image. Get rid of this. And then we're going to say the condition, this one, and the high temp, this one, high for today. Okay, so now we're going to return this thing, and so we actually don't need this. Just going to return this whole JSX. That is going to be this div that contains a date, pass through the date, the image, passing through the URL that it gives us. The condition is going to be the condition, the high is the high. Ooh, chill. Doesn't want to help me fix its own mess. Put you back where you were. Okay. Okay, so today is 6/21. This is that image that it gave us, tells us the date. It says the condition is thundery outbreaks possible, and it's 96. And so now the goal would be to style this to make them not just look like a list. I feel like every time we run out of time when it gets to that point, so we've always just had ugly stuff. And so your homework's actually pretty light tonight. And so I'm gonna add to your homework. I want you guys to take this and basically show me these next 3 days as cards and just make it look as nice as you want. Just really try to zhuzh it up a little bit. And then we just have a couple more videos, but we're after tonight's homework, we're actually done with all of the egghead stuff. And we'll be just looking into like new new libraries. We're going to be looking into like learning about how to routing and creating multiple pages, and we're going to be learning about component libraries and things like that. But like we've learned all of the basics of React, so to speak. There are very common like libraries that you'll use anytime you use React, and so they're like important to learn alongside. And so that's kind of what the second half of this module will be. But after you finish tonight, you'll basically know, I'd say like 80% of what React itself does. And so now we just need to like really work on our repetition, because I know it can feel like crazy and foreign. It's super new and it's a lot to handle. And so we just need to like do it a lot and kind of feel it a lot. Sweet. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Do you post these files anywhere at all or no?
Yeah, so I can pull it up real quick. So inside the OKCoders GitHub, there's curriculum, there is module 4, and today's day 4. Today's day 3. Yeah, today's day 3. And currently there's nothing in here. What I can do, let's just show you real quick. Yeah. Status. Okay, so if I refresh this, now the weather thing we just worked on is right here, source. You get your components folder, and you can click into weather. And so this is everything that we just wrote. And so your job is to just update this day card component and make it look a little nicer.
Perfect.
Sweet. Awesome. And I will post, there's like 5 links to the rest of the things in Egghead that matter, and one other thing. And so I'll post all of that stuff after this class.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Awesome. How do we feel like we're doing, guys? Does it definitely feel like a big jump? Is it going
It's a
too fast,
lot.
too slow?
Yes.
It's I feel like I just need more time to kind of sit down and stare at these things. By that I mean I need to take more time because I've had time. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that we're doing. It feels like we're moving pretty quick, but I imagine once we get through this first part and then we just start, like you said, doing it over and over, it'll probably sink in.
Yeah. And so Saturday is going to be our first work day. And so what we're going to do Saturday is just rewrite some of the coffee shop that we did in vanilla and just kind of refactor it all to work in React. And so then we can start building on that project and kind of continue to rewrite it until it looks something close to what a modern application would look like. And so that's the plan for Saturday. And I think that'll help kind of reinforce, because things that you've built, you know what it's supposed to look like, you know what it's supposed to do. You just need to do it with React and kind of figure out that piece. And so I think hopefully Saturday will help it click a lot more. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of it. I held you long enough. I will see you on Saturday.
All right. Thank
ya.
you. You have a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.